Have you sometimes been misunderstood or misrepresented by others? You say one thing, but somebody else has retold what you have said to someone else in a completely different way. You've been completely misrepresented. If yes, if this happens to you also from time to time, don't worry. This even happened to the Buddha. Even to the Buddha, and still happens to him up to this time and to this age. So how could it be any different for us? So you're in good company, don't worry. And especially nowadays over the internet, Facebook, WhatsApp, many news and fake news are in circulation. Not only the Buddha is misquoted, but also other news about politics, elections, COVID-19, almost everything. So in the same way, not only there are real quotes of the Buddha in circulation, and oftentimes, I open my WhatsApp or Messenger and a message comes in, a quote with a picture from the Buddha and a very wise saying. But interestingly, not all of them are really from the Buddha. So I've noticed that quite a number are actually falsely attributed to him. And they have been called now fake quotes. And this actually happens quite frequently, especially with wise sayings about karma, about rebirth, doing good, that they get attributed to the Buddha. I assume this usually happens actually with innocent intention. People just want to spread it, and maybe they think if they write Buddha underneath, it's like a sign of authenticity, of authority. Maybe it can spread a bit quicker. But of course, for us who are interested in the Buddha's teaching, we want to understand and know what did the Buddha really teach. This is very confusing. So since there are already so many so-called fake Buddha quotes floating around in the web, a number of years ago, a website was started by Bodhipaksha, just for the sake of identifying the true from the fake Buddha quotes. And I think I've mentioned before, this website is even called fakebuddhaquotes.com. So you don't have to check it out now, but maybe at another time. So it's called fakebuddhaquotes.com, everything one word, and then you find a collection of all these falsely attributed Buddha quotes. But actually, you will find out it's not so easy to identify and to distinguish what is really from the Buddha and what sounds also like from the Buddha, but really it is not. So for this purpose, today, I have prepared 10 quotes, some of which are from the Buddha, some are not. So it's now your job to distinguish real or fake. Are you ready? As it was explained before, we use Slido on a secondary device or on a second browser tab. So in this case, you can also get a score when you participate in the quiz. And sure, you can also just listen, but you hear me talking, but then you are not actively joining the quiz. So if you have a second device, there's still a little bit of time. You can just take it, log in, write your username, and try to join the quiz. It's still okay. Also try not to cheat. And know from my own school time, there was always a temptation to look something up under the desk from a book or ask my neighbor if he didn't know the answer. Nowadays we are cheating with Google. So let's try to be truthful, and it's a good test for yourself actually. And you're not getting any marks, so don't worry. And also no need to post the results on Facebook. I will show the answers afterwards and I will explain each answer a little bit. I know that many of you have been participating in this quiz before and you're quite familiar with the process already. So I would say, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so I will activate the first quiz question. So you should be able to see on your device, but don't leave the, the page that is open where you hear me talking, otherwise I'm disappearing. But on a secondary device, you can already see the first quote. It says, and probably we can also see it on the screen. Let me take a minute, give me a moment. I will also share the screen that we can also see it live here. Hold on. I'm not yet allowed to do screen sharing. Okay. Very well. Okay, first question. One moment can change a day. One day can change a life. And one life can change the world. Is this really from the Buddha? Or is it fake? Let me read it out again. One moment can change a day. One day can change a life. And one life can change the world. Is this from the Buddha? Yes or no? So feel free to vote. Key in on your device. Or at least mentally, you can make up your mind. What do you think is the right answer? Usually I give you about 40 seconds, 20 to 40 seconds. So you don't have too much time. So once you see the question and once I finished reading it out, there's a little bit of more time, then you can already start to key in. Okay, you can see the votes are coming in. A few more seconds. All right. So was this quote from the Buddha or not? Let us have a look how you have voted. Oh, that's interesting. 70% have said it's not from the Buddha. And 30% have said it is. Ah. Well, not everybody will be right. So is it from the Buddha or not? Let us see the correct answer. No, it's actually a fake Buddha quote. It sounds as if it could be from the Buddha, but actually it's not. So I wonder, how did you detect that it's not from the Buddha? 70% have correctly identified that it's not from the Buddha. How did you do that? Well, I think one giveaway is this phrase, you can change the world. You know, this thing about changing the world, it sounds good, and if the world is changed for the better, then it is also good. I mean, changing the world does not always mean for the better, right? You can even have leaders, political leaders, they can also change the world quite dramatically, but not always for the better. But sometimes they do. But the important thing here is, the Buddha was actually not a social reformer or a politician. Instead, he was a reformer, yes, but of individuals, by showing and teaching a way out of suffering. So it's a kind of internal reform, if you wish. But he did not go out and try to change the political system. And even though the Buddha had contact with powerful and influential people during his time, but not much is recorded of him interfering with the daily affairs of how things were conducted, with politics, or trying to change society as a whole. None of that is really reported. In fact, I think, as most of us know, changing one's own mind is difficult enough. Not to speak about changing others. Try to change your husband, or your wife, or your children. Life will teach you a lesson about how easy it is. So this is where the real work needs to be done. Everyone for himself. Sure, we help each other, but in the end, we have to change ourselves. Because this is where the most effect can be achieved. And the Buddha knew that. And the Buddha was indirectly changing the world by helping individuals to change themselves and improve, to diminish greed, hatred, delusion, jealousy, stinginess, all kinds of defilements. But always with the goal to reduce suffering and increase well-being and happiness. But not so much with the idea to change the world or society as a whole, but more and almost exclusively with the intention of helping that person with the utmost of his capabilities. So in this way the Buddha did change the world, because many people did follow his advice, and in this way change came about. But it's more in an indirect way. So anyway, the quote itself, one moment can change a day, one day can change a life, and one life can change the world. It's probably true, this statement, but it's not true that it's from the Buddha. It's not recorded in our scriptures. Okay. Well, 70% got it right. Maybe it was not so difficult. Let us try another one. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Second question. Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. I repeat. Better than 1,000 hollow, empty words is one word that brings peace. Is this from the Buddha? Yes or no? Feel free to vote. Key in your guess, your educated guess. I'll give you a little bit of time. You cannot see it, but I can see that the results are getting quite close. It's almost 50-50. It's not so clear this time. Okay. All right. Let us see what is the correct answer. Is it real or fake? I'll show you the answer in a few seconds. First we look at how you have voted, and it's exactly 50-50. Half of you have said it is real, half have voted it's fake. Not everybody will be right again. Half of you will not be right. Correct answer, this quote is really from the Buddha. Yes, it's from the Dhammapada. Dhammapada number 100. Better than 1,000 empty words is one word that brings peace. So what does that mean? It's an encouragement to avoid idle chatter, just talking about nothing meaningful. And an encouragement also to make our speech to something that has value. That is cherished by others. And as so often in life, things that are valuable, they're often quite rare to find. Like even out in the world, like gold or silver, precious metals. Gold is so valuable because it's so rare. It's so rare to find. And the same principle that things that are rare are treasured more is also very true with speech. So if somebody's speech is somebody's just talking all the time, it's like a constant background sound, cannot switch it off. Actually, nobody listens anymore, isn't it? Because it's just going on all the time. Oh yeah, okay, he's just talking. But if a person doesn't speak so much, but every now and then on an important topic, he contributes, he speaks up. People will listen. Oh, she's saying something. What does she have to say? So in this way, you can make your speech, your words, that have meaning, I hope. We can make them to something that is valued and listened to. And in this way, will be cherished and will also have, hopefully, an impact and influence. So this is part of the meaning of these words. Also, we could say that it might also mean that rather than wanting to impress others with a lot of knowledge about really useless things, Prince so-and-so married Princess so-and-so, the latest scandal in politics or somewhere. Does it really change your life? How relevant is it? So instead, also knowledge, about even biology, science. Nothing wrong with that. But just for the sake of impressing others, again, it's also not the real purpose of speech. Instead, what really helps others and ourselves are words that are wise, that go to the heart. And such kind of words, people listen. And not only listen, but also are helpful. This is not to say that we always have to speak only about the Dhamma. Of course, it's good to do. I would like to encourage. But there can also be practical things that need to be discussed. That's all okay. So it's important to distinguish between what is relevant and what is not. And also knowing the right time to speak and to be silent. Okay. So that was the second of our quotes. Let us move on to the next one. Get another chance. Move on to question number 3. Quote number 3. Your body is precious. It is your vehicle for awakening. Treat it with care. I repeat. Your body is precious. It's your vehicle for awakening. Treat it with care. Is this from the Buddha or not? Again, we are not trying to find out right now whether it's true or not. It could be true. But the main question here is, did the Buddha say it? Maybe yes, maybe not. Give you a few more seconds. Okay. Let us see the results. Okay, let us see how you have voted first. 40% have said it's real, and 60% have voted that it's fake. Okay, that's interesting. So again, a close race. Let us see what is the correct answer. It's also fake. It's not from the Buddha. Your body is precious. It is your vehicle for awakening. Treat it with care. It's not what the Buddha said. There's no record of that, at least. Even though this quote is found everywhere, very widely spread online, which isn't surprising, because it reminds us of the importance of keeping the body in good health, something that many of us maybe neglect. And also the body is an important vehicle for awakening. That's also true. Even though awakening is not only a physical exercise, so it's also to a very large extent actually the workings of the mind, but the body and mind condition each other. And it is valuable and useful, and it makes sense also to take care for one's body. But then it also says precious, the body is precious. This is also not a term that the Buddha ever used to describe the body. It's almost a very positive body image, almost over-evaluating or overvaluing. He did stress to keep the body healthy. And even when the monks eat their food, before they start eating, or even while eating, they're doing this alms food reflection, which goes like this. Wisely reflecting, I use alms food. Not for fun, not for pleasure, not for fattening, not for beautification. Only for the maintenance and nourishment of this body, for keeping it healthy, for helping with the holy life. Thinking, in this way I will allay old feelings of hunger, I can remove the hunger, but I will also prevent new feelings of drowsiness from arising. In this way I will live blamelessly and at ease. So you can see here in this reflection that there's an awareness of the Buddha to maintain the body, to eat and consume food, and to give strength, and to be free from sickness, and to be free from hunger. So yes, that's all okay. But to say, to describe the body as precious, that goes a bit far. In fact, it is more neutral how the Buddha describes it in that passage that we have just discussed. It's simply sustained, without attachment, ideally. So seeing the body as precious would, for the Buddha, would be taking us too close to what he called intoxication with health. There's a sutta, it's the Upachattana Sutta, where I will read out a short passage for you. There are beings who are intoxicated with a healthy person's intoxication with health. So they are intoxicated with health. Because of that intoxication with health, they conduct themselves in a bad way in body, in speech, and in mind. But when they often reflect on that fact, that healthy person's intoxication with health will either be entirely abandoned or grow weaker. So the meaning here is that a healthy body, a beautiful body, can also lead to conceit or looking down on those who are not so healthy or beautiful. Or one may spend a lot of time shaping and trimming the body, but neglecting the development of the mind. So to counter this intoxication, the Buddha offered perspectives on the body that are actually less flattering also. For example, in the Dhammapada 147, the Buddha says, "Fully worn out is this body, a nest of disease and fragile. This foul mass breaks up, for death is the end of life." So you can see here the Buddha speaks about worms being there, or at least he says it's worn out and it's a foul mass, and that nest of diseases. It's very true. So the Buddha cautions us and makes us aware that the body is not inherently beautiful. And there are even practices where the monks are encouraged to imagine their own body as a corpse, as a dead body. How does it look when it gets bloated after death? Then the maggots come and eat it up. And over a long time of decomposition, only the bones remain, falling into dust, getting scattered. So again, this is to counter the natural tendency of most of us to be proud or identify with our body, with this kind of intoxication with beauty. As the saying goes, beauty is only skin deep, right? If you have ever been to an autopsy, you understand that saying very well. Because in an autopsy you can see, once the skin is taken off or opened up, there's nothing beautiful inside anymore. Organs, flesh, blood, fat, yellow mass of fat doesn't look appealing. So beauty is only skin deep. So when we speak about the beautiful body, we actually mean only the outer layer, but we ignore all the rest. Okay, I think we are ready to go on to the next question. We do one more question now, which will be number 4, and then we do a small, we look at the leadership board and see whether we have somebody already who is in front. What are our top 5 people? We'll see after this question. We do one more question first. Okay? Next question. Suffering is not holding you. You are holding suffering. So the Buddha supposedly said, suffering is not holding you. You are holding suffering. Is it from the Buddha or not? I give you a little bit of time. Make up your mind. Key in the answers on your phone or on the laptop. Okay, let us see how you have voted. Your poll results. We have 52% say that's really a quote from the Buddha, and 48% say it's a fake quote. Or again, a head-to-head race. This will be interesting later. Oh, let us see who is right. Is it really from the Buddha or is it a fake Buddha quote? Actually, it's also a fake Buddha quote. It's not from the Buddha. It sounds wise. It almost sounds a bit like a Zen koan. But really, it comes from Osho. Osho, he lived from 1931 to 1990. He was an Indian God-man, a mystic, and founder of the Rajneesh movement. And during his lifetime, he was considered as quite a controversial new religious leader and mystic. And he emphasized the importance of meditation, mindfulness, love, celebration, courage, creativity, and even humor. So, sounds nice, right? And I can see some overlap with the Buddha's teachings. We heard meditation, mindfulness. But there's also some differences. It's definitely not a Buddhist. So what's the takeaway from that quote? Suffering is not holding you, you are holding suffering. Well, I take it to mean that we should not identify with our feelings, but see them as conditioned phenomena. And often, unpleasant feelings are the result of karma, of an unwholesome karmic deed in the past. I say it often because it's not always. You cannot conclude every time there's some displeasure that it's always the result of an unwholesome deed. It could just be the weather. You feel hot, you're sweaty, you don't like it. Does not mean you've done something unwholesome. Or it could be an accident. So there's a sutta where the Buddha says, not only karma and not only past karma can be the cause for dukkha vedana, but also things like accidents or imbalance in the body, in your organs, things like that also. But past deeds, unwholesome deeds, can also be the cause for unpleasant experience. But here also I can see an encouragement not to identify with feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, but to regard them as not me, not mine, not myself. Feeling cannot be avoided, but the reaction towards that feeling, whether we react with greed, liking, attachment, or aversion, pushing away. So these two reactions are avoidable. But feeling itself, well, once you're born, you will have feelings going on. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Feelings are not wholesome. Feelings are not unwholesome. They are just feelings. But how we react to them, that can make the mind wholesome or unwholesome. Okay. Let us have a look now together at the leadership board. Let us see whether we have a leader or a group of leaders already. John has 4 out of 4 questions correct. Wow, amazing. Yang Hua, 3 out of 4. Geraldine, 3 out of 4. Oh, many. Chiam Sa, Hom Ang, 3 out of 4. And there are quite a few more. I can see, I have a longer list here in front of me actually. So there's also Sidi and Ben Hui, Kylie, also 3 out of 4. And then another number with 2 out of 4, actually quite many. Okay, looks good for you, but it's not yet over. Can we differentiate who is in front? Youngsters or more the old timers? Well, it's difficult to see from the name, at least for me. I don't know most of the names. Or men or women. Yeah, I'm not good with Chinese names. Maybe you can identify there some tendencies. I wouldn't be surprised. Often with these quizzes or Dhamma projects, it seems women are scoring quite well, you know. And I think I've mentioned before, I have a suspicion why women are scoring so high. It's quite obvious. If you live in a monastery, like me, you notice that 80% of visitors that come to do dana, to listen to the Dhamma talks, are women. I don't know, is it just a matter of curiosity or interest in the Dhamma? Of course, the man will say, no, we also want to listen, but we don't have time, we have to work. Really? I'm not sure. But I definitely see that usually it's definitely the majority women. So it's not a surprise. Then, in the end, then this is also the ones who will score high at Dhamma quizzes and have a deeper understanding. I'm now challenging the man a little bit. Even though we have a leader with the name of John, that sounds quite like a man. Who knows? Nowadays even that doesn't tell you much, a name. But let us see. There's still time to catch up and to change the statistics. Let us continue with the next question. So we have still a lot of ground to cover. We are moving to question number 5 now. Next quote. Health is the greatest gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth. I repeat, health is the greatest gift, but contentment is the greatest wealth. Is that from the Buddha? I'll give you a little bit of time again. I can see the votes are coming in. Oh, this time we have a clear majority, one way or another. Okay. End of your voting. Let us see how you voted. 63% say it's fake, not from the Buddha. And 38% say it's real. As so often, majority usually is right. Is it right? Usually the majority gets it right. But in this case, I'm sorry, the majority is wrong. Majority got it wrong and 38% have it correct. This is really from the Buddha. This is a quote or a part of a quote from the Dhammapada. I'll give you the verse in full. The full verse says, health is the greatest gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth. A trusted friend is the best relative. Nibbana is the greatest bliss. So the first 2 lines, these are the 2 lines we just had in our quote. We spoke about health already in the previous verses. Here I would like to dwell a little bit on the second part of the statement. Contentment is the greatest wealth. And it reminds me actually on another saying that is not from the Buddha as far as I know, but I like it very much. It says, not who possesses much is rich, but one who desires little. Not one who has a lot is rich, but one who desires very little only. Because whether you feel rich or not depends very much on that gap between what we have and what we want. And you can see here, there's a gap in between them. So if what we have is lower or a lot lower than what we want, then there is a big gap. So how can we close that gap? Because that gap means suffering, You're not getting what you want. This is one of the ways we suffer. So most people in the world, they will try to close that gap by increasing what they have. And in this way, the gap can be closed. Right? Wrong. Because what happens? Yes, you can accumulate more of what we have, but our desires also raise. And then we accumulate more, and the desires also raise. So you're just moving this whole thing up to a higher point, but there's still the gap remains, or can even become larger. So the gap between what we have and what we want cannot be closed easily in the way just by increasing all the time what we have. But there's another way. I'll let you think a little bit, but I think it's quite obvious. We can also close that gap by bringing that one down, isn't it? Rather than working hard and bringing this one up and it still doesn't work, we can also reduce that. We can reduce what we want, what we desire, what we crave for. And in this way, the gap can become quite small. And the small gap means happiness, well-being. So how is that working? Well, it comes from contentment, reducing what we want, having gratitude from about the good things we have already. Having a sense of amazing that I have access to medicine when I need it. I could go to school, education, food, friends, family, so many things to be grateful for. Often we forget or take those things for granted. So by having gratitude and establishing contentment, we can close that gap actually in a much more efficient way than by trying to get more and then our desires also raise in tandem. Like a hamster on a wheel just runs at full speed but is not getting anywhere. Or like a person running on a treadmill, you're still in the same place. Your well-being does not increase even though you make a lot of effort at work, in your career. That's the typical areas where we try to gain prestige or more income, and we assume that this will make us happy. So anyway, this was a real quote and really from the Buddha. Let's move on to question number 6. A man said to the Buddha, "I want happiness." The Buddha replied, "First remove I, that's ego. Then remove want, that's desire. See, now you're left with only happiness." That's a nice one. First remove I, that's ego, the Buddha answered, because he said, "I want happiness. I want happiness." First remove the I, because that's coming from ego. Then remove the want, that's your desire. See? Now you're left with only happiness. Is that from the Buddha? Real or fake? Please put in your votes. I'll give you a few more seconds. Okay. And let us have a look about how the majority of you have voted. 70% say no, it's not from the Buddha. 30% say it is. Who is right, who is wrong? Majority was right this time. It's true. it's not from the Buddha. The source of this quote is actually unknown. People have done research and couldn't trace it exactly to one starting point, to one person. But we know it's not included in the Buddhist scriptures. In fact, even though it's a nice play on words, but it wouldn't work in Pali language even. It works well in English, you know, but in Pali you can't separate the personal pronoun I from the verb want. In Pali, this is like one word. I want can be something, or I like ichami or kamemi. But the me says that it's I. So but you cannot say just icha, just want. Does not. You have to say I want, he wants. So I want is ichami, I like, or he is ichati. So only by the ending you know it's I or you or he. So in Pali, this play on word actually wouldn't even work, because you cannot say I want and then remove this one. That wouldn't work. Yet the relationship between wanting, craving, in relation to happiness is indeed a very important teaching of the Buddha. And the first and second noble truth are about suffering and its cause. And the cause of suffering that the Buddha has pointed out is craving, desire, attachment. So the meaning of that phrase that we have, of that quote, is very Buddhist in nature, even though it doesn't come from the Buddha himself. But the meaning certainly has Dhamma meaning. Also, it says at the beginning, first remove I, that's ego. So again, that word points to the giving up of personality view, sakkaya ditthi, and identification, mana. So these are very profound and important teachings of the Buddha. And we won't have enough time now to go into detail with these concepts, but there's a lot of Dhamma there. But the quote itself is not from the Buddha, even though I do find it admittedly quite catchy. All right. We do one more question before we see a second time the leadership board, or maybe two more, number 7 and 8. Now we come to number 7. A generous heart, kind speech, and a life of service and compassion. These are the things that renew humanity. I read it out a second time. A generous heart, kind speech, and a life of service and compassion. These are the things that renew humanity. Is it from the Buddha or not? Up to you. Okay, you can see the votes coming in. Few more seconds. Okay. Let us see how you voted. 62% say it's not from the Buddha. It seems now every question you always say fake, fake, fake. There are some real Buddha quotes. Don't always say fake. So 38% have voted it's a real Buddha quote. We will see who is right, who is wrong. It's another fake Buddha quote. So what has given it away? How did you find out? I think the main giveaway was probably the end where it says, these are the things that renew humanity. It's just way off. It's not something that the Buddha says. We don't have any record of something not even close or similar to renew humanity. And also a life of service and compassion is a very contemporary motion, and also in Christianity, that's a high goal, to live a life dedicated for service and compassion only. But in Buddhism, these elements are important, but they are not the goal, and they are not even close to the goal. They are important stepping stone and hard qualities to develop, but in and of themselves, they are not sufficient for reaching liberation. So compassion is part of the 4 Brahma Viharas, of the 4 divine abidings, along with loving kindness, metta, also empathetic joy or appreciative joy, mudita, and upekkha, equanimity. Whereas the singling out of compassion, or almost an overemphasis on compassion as the most important quality to develop, is a historically later development, which actually becomes very pronounced in the Mahayana schools of Buddhism also. But in early Buddhism, compassion stands on an equal footing with the other 3 Brahma Viharas. It's not singled out as the best or the ultimate of the 4 Brahma Viharas. Now the beginning of that quote that we had there, it starts out with a generous heart, kind speech, and a life of service and compassion. So the beginning is actually something that is similar to the Sigalovada Sutta in Digha Nikaya, number 31. There it says, generosity and kind words, conduct for others' welfare, impartiality in all things, these are suitable everywhere. These kind dispositions hold the world together, like the linchpin of a moving chariot. So the first 2 lines correspond closely to a generous heart, kind speech, and a life of service and compassion. But to say that, they are closely related to a generous heart, kind speech, but then it's a stretch to say that things that renew humanity, it's not a paraphrasing of these are suitable everywhere. The sutta says, these are suitable everywhere, but that quote says, things that renew humanity. So this phrase, renewing humanity, sounds as if it views samsara, the cycle of birth and death, in a very positive light. To renew humanity sounds like it's a good thing. But if renewed existence were a good thing, then the Buddha would not have taught the Dhamma for getting out of samsara. Instead, the Buddha tried to stop the cycle of birth and death. Not even human existence, rebirth in the human plane, is regarded as the ultimate. It is still full of suffering. Whereas cessation of becoming, Pavanirodha, is what the Buddha truly promoted. To stop becoming, stop developing further and further, becoming reborn again and again. This is the kind of nibbana that the Buddha spoke about. Not to renew humanity. So I think that last passage gave it away quite clearly. That's why the majority of you also identified it correctly as a fake Buddha quote. Well done. We do one more question and then we have a second look at the leadership board, okay? Question number 8. All conditioned things are impermanent. When with wisdom this is seen, one is released from suffering. All conditioned things are impermanent. When with wisdom this is seen, one is released from suffering. Is this from the Buddha? What do you think? So give in your votes. Now is the time. Maybe you make it into the top 5. There's still a few questions to come. We have 10 questions altogether. This is number 8. Could this be from the Buddha now? Okay, a few more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, no more voting. Let us look at the results. Wow, that's a clear result. 91% say this is from the Buddha. You seem to be very sure about that. Only 9%, it's probably just 1 or 2 people, think it's probably not a fake quote, because there have been so many fake quotes already. Probably Ariyadhammika puts only fake Buddha quotes there. Then it's very easy to give the right answer. But, this time it was a real Buddha quote. So yeah, the vast majority got it right. This is really a quote from the Buddha. It's coming from the Dhamma number 277. And it's accompanied by 2 more quotes that are very similar. I'm sure you have also heard them, where it also says, not only all conditioned things are impermanent, but also all conditioned things, sankharas, are also dukkha. They're also unsatisfactory. And here it wouldn't be good to say all sankharas are painful or suffering, because not everything is painful, right? But things are unsatisfactory in nature. That is correct. They cannot give us lasting happiness, even something pleasant. How long does the joy from eating your favorite dish, maybe going to Penang, have some laksa just at the right store, just the right type? But how long does that happiness last? So even that is dukkha, not suffering, but it's unsatisfactory. It cannot give lasting happiness. That's why even Mick Jagger, the singer from the Rolling Stones, even he understands, he sings, "I can't get no satisfaction," very famous song, rock song. If even Mick Jagger says he can't get satisfaction from all the sense pleasures that he consumes, alcohol, drugs, women, or everything what you can imagine, wildest dreams, he has tried it out. If even he says, "I can't get no satisfaction," that means something. That means we don't even have to try, right? So these things are pleasant in the moment, but not giving lasting happiness. That's why all conditioned things are unsatisfactory in nature, because they change, they're conditioned. When the thing changes, then the happiness goes away. And the third quote that comes together here in the Dhammapada is, "All things are non-self. Sabbe Dhamma anatta," in Pali. And you might have noticed there's a small difference between these 3 verses. The first 2 say, all conditioned things are impermanent and unsatisfactory. But for the third verse, it says, all things, not all conditioned things. So all things is a larger category, and all conditioned things is a smaller category. smaller is interesting because all conditioned things, almost everything you can look around, it's all conditioned. A table is conditioned by having wood, a carpenter who made it, somebody who sold it. So many conditions have to be in place for us to have a table. Anything you can look at, it's all conditioned. Even our body, feelings, perceptions, conditioned by childhood, so many things. But there's one thing that is not conditioned. We even call it the unconditioned. What could that be? Nibbana. So, can we say all things are anicca, are impermanent? Is Nibbana impermanent? No, Nibbana is permanent. Is Nibbana unsatisfactory? Is it dukkha? Is it suffering? No, it's the cessation of suffering. So Nibbana is also not, that's why you cannot say sabbe Dhamma anicca, all things are impermanent. Because Nibbana is also a thing, you can speak about it and have a label there. That thing that it points to is not impermanent. It's also not unsatisfactory. But even Nibbana, there's no self there. Even Nibbana is non-self. So that's why you can use the larger category for Nibbana that includes the conditioned things and the unconditioned, sabbe Dhamma, all things. Whereas for the first two, we say only sabbe Saṅghāṇā, all conditioned things. And Saṅghāṇā in this context does not mean just volition. Here it does mean all conditioned phenomena, which is a little bit different from Saṅkhāra in the context of the five aggregates, where it speaks about the volitional formations. Okay. Let us have another look at our leadership board. I am now interested whether the previous 5 people are still in the top scores or whether there was a bit of a change of our leaders. Let us together have a look. Oh, yes, there were also change. Yeah, I've seen Geraldine before also in the leadership board, but now she made it to number 1. And Ben Hui, number 2, 7 out of 8. But Geraldine is faster in giving the answers. That's why she is ranked as number 1. And there's a third person who also has 7 out of 8 correct. Kai Li. John is still around, number 4, 6 out of 8. Yang Hua, also 6 out of 8. Kit, 6 out of 8. Hum Ang, 6 out of 8. Visakha, 5 out of 8. CL Lim, 5, and so on. Okay. Well, we're getting close to the end of our quiz. How does it look now? Men versus women? Well, it seems we have a female leader, if I understand it correctly. But then closely followed by Ben. Yeah, I think the men were catching up here. Or maybe you can make another distinction. Lady versus monastics. Monks versus lay people. Who is leading? Oh, I think no monks here. Either they don't score high in the quiz, I don't know, or probably not monks participating. Would be quite shameful, huh? But who knows, you know? It's not so easy. You might think the monks know the canon in and out. Not necessarily. And some of the quotes, they sound as if they could come from the Buddha. Never mind, there's still 2 more questions for you to catch up. Let us move on to question number 9. Thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle. And the life of the single candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. I read out again. Thousands of candles can be lighted from one single candle, and the life of this single candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. Is this from the Buddha or not? I give you a little bit of time to think about it. Okay, few more seconds. Bring in your words. Oh, I can see a close race again is unfolding here. Okay, let us see the results of how you have voted. It was for a long time a 50-50 head-to-head race. Now towards the end, the people who think it's another fake quote have the slight majority. But now we will see whether the majority is correct or not. Is it? Yes. Majority is correct. This is not from the Buddha. So again, the principle there is probably correct. The relationship between happiness that does not decrease when being shared. The Buddha didn't say it like that, but we have one practice and one quality, which is mudita, also translated as empathetic joy or sympathetic joy, appreciative joy, which means rejoicing in the happiness of other people. So if you see somebody being happy, successful, rather than being jealous, we're trying to arouse a sense of happiness, being happy with him, being happy with her. And that is a very nice form of happiness. Doesn't cost anything. So that quality we have in the Dhamma. And it's even a meditation practice. And there's another practice that many of us Buddhists are doing very regularly, which is the sharing of merit. We do something good, and then we share merit with our departed relatives, friends, and all beings. Right? But then, how does that work? Isn't everybody the owner of his own karma? How can I share my merit with somebody else? And then the person is just sitting there and gets my merit? Not exactly like that. So really we cannot share or give away our merit. What we really do is we invite another person to rejoice in the wholesome deeds we have done. So if you have done some help for somebody, or if you cooked something for someone, or did another service, or acts of generosity, and then you inform another person, I would like to share the merit of that with you, please rejoice in that. And if that other person hears from you and says, oh, very good, you're doing that, and he's happily rejoicing in your wholesome deeds, this act of happily rejoicing, this is the merit that he makes. So he himself accumulates good karma by rejoicing. Normally we say sadhu, 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 right? So this is actually how we make the good merit ourselves. It's only triggered, initiated by another person. But we cannot just magically give the karma from one to another person. I am the owner of my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma, whatever action I do, of that I will be the heir. So, not other people, but the person who is doing it. But the sharing of merit, also, the person who rejoices in the sharing, he gets the good karma. He accumulates good karma in the here and now. So that's how the sharing of merit really works. behind the scenes, so to speak. Okay. So thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle. The life will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. Yes, I agree. It's not from the Buddha. He didn't say it like that, as far as we know. But it's still true statement. Okay. Last question. Last quote. We're also running out of time, so we really have to wrap up here. Quote number 10. Let us have a look. The thought manifests as the word. The word manifests as the deed, action. The deed develops into habit. Habit hardens into character. So, watch the thought and its ways with care, and let it spring from love, born out of concern for all beings. And let it stand there a little bit. You can read it on your own a second time. It's a very nice sequence. But the question is it from the Buddha or not? Please bring in your votes. Is this from the Buddha or not? Not easy. Okay. Wrapping up here. Last question, last opportunity. Okay. Let us see how you voted. 70% say it's not from the Buddha. 30% believe it is from the Buddha. And to be honest, since I first heard this quote, it was always one of my favorite verses I have ever come across. I really like this one. And it contains so many Dhamma elements. But whether it's also from the Buddha, whether it's recorded in the scriptures or not, well, actually no. There are many Dhamma elements in it, but it's not a quote directly from the Buddha. So let us discuss it a little bit. The thought manifests as the word. Like the mind is the forerunner of all things, or of things, of phenomena. Dhammapada, the first verse. So that principle, some people would say, yes, we have that also in the suttas. The thought manifests. Because the body doesn't speak on its own, right? So ideally there's some thought happening, even sometimes very short, sometimes very spontaneous, but there's still thought happening. And then the word manifests as the deed, as the physical action. I mean, that sounds nice, but there I already have some doubts. Is it really that every time you say something that will manifest as an action? From my experience, that's not necessarily the case. The deed develops into habit. Actions that we do regularly become habits. But also, that would also apply to words, of course, and also to thoughts. But yes, it's also true for deeds. And habit hardens into character. Deeds that we do all the time, repeat again and again. And there's even one quote from the Buddha, a real one, I hope, where he says, what a person frequently thinks and ponders upon, that becomes the inclination of the mind. It will naturally think and ponder about the same kind of things again and again. Therefore, the quote continues, here, So watch the thought and its ways with care, wise attention, mindfulness, and let it spring from love, from loving kindness, born out of concern for all living beings. So definitely, the Buddha spoke a lot about, I think, almost all these elements. But as a whole, and this is not from the Buddha. Okay, we have reached the very end of our Dhamma quiz. Question 10 is finished. Should we have a look at the final result of the leadership board? Now we will have a winner. Okay, I give you a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Amazing. Congratulations, Geraldine. 9 out of 10 correct. Very good. Yang Wa, 8 out of 10. Kit, 8 out of 10. Ben Hui, 8 out of 10. LD, also. And then I give you one more honorable mention because he also has 8 out of 10, even though it's not recorded in the top 5, who is Kai Li. And then afterwards come people with 7 out of 10 correct answers. Well done. So who won? The youngsters or the old timers? I don't know. I can't see it from the names. Men or women? Well, it seems women had the lead today. At least our top Geraldine sounds like female. But closely followed by Yanghwa and Kit, Ben. So it seems quite balanced. Monastics, oh my goodness, not a single monk is here. What is happening here? Where are the monks and nuns? I think they don't know much Dhamma, it seems, huh? Okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume mostly not many monks was probably participating. I don't think actually anyone was part of it. In the end, it doesn't matter, does it? Who wins, who is lost, doesn't really matter. If we have learned something, we have all won. That's how I feel about it. So, as you can see, learning the Dhamma can actually be quite fun. But probably you've also noticed that it's not always easy to know what is the Buddha's teaching and what is not. So how to decide what is the Dhamma and what is not? There's a very important discourse. It's called the Mahabhadisa Sutta in Anguttara 4.180, where the Buddha says, when another monk says, in the presence of the Blessed One, of the Buddha, I heard this, a certain teaching. In the presence of the Buddha, I learned this. This is the Dhamma, this is the Vinaya. This is the Buddha's teaching. So nowadays, of course, nobody can say, I heard it directly from the Buddha, because there's nobody so old these days. But at that time, there were people around. So if somebody makes a claim and says, he's heard it directly from the Buddha, then the Buddha recommends that monk's statement should neither be approved nor be rejected. Without approving or rejecting it, you should thoroughly learn those words and phrases and then check for them in the discourses, in the suttas, and seek them in the discipline, in the Vinaya. If, when you check for them in the suttas and the Vinaya, then you find that they are not included in the suttas and not to be seen in the Vinaya, then you should draw the conclusion, surely this is not the word of the Blessed One, the Arahant, the perfectly enlightened one. It has been badly learned by that bhikkhu. Thus, you should discard it, put it away, put it aside. But if when you do check for them in the suttas and the Vinaya and you find that they are included among them, then you should draw the conclusion, surely this is the word of the Blessed One. It has been well memorized by that bhikkhu. And then the same principle of fact-checking, so to speak, the Buddha says we should also apply to when in a community there's a whole Sangha where they have some elder monks and prominent monks, maybe even famous monks, who are well known for their learnedness. And they make a certain statement about the Dhamma. Is it true or not? Because sometimes other monks might say the opposite. Again, the same principle. Compare it with the suttas and the Vinaya. If it's included, accept it. If not, put it aside. Even if somebody, a very learned person, comes and says, that's how it is, if it's not included in the words of the Buddha, he can also be wrong. Or when in a residence, several elder bhikkhus are dwelling who are learned, heirs to the heritage, experts on the Dhamma, the same principle. Always compare it with the suttas and the Vinaya. So in short, it doesn't matter who says it, whether it's a samanera, or a lay person, or a learned person, we always have to go back, ideally, and check it in the suttas and the Vinaya. But this is not so easy, because in order to know what's included, you would first have to read and encounter the words of the Buddha in the suttas regularly in order to be able to identify what are the real teachings and what are the fake Buddha quotes, so to speak. And not believe things just based on hearsay. Why does it actually even matter? Well, the Buddha is the first jam, the first refuge. And the Dhamma is the second jam. So it doesn't matter whether we take refuge in the real Dhamma, the real teachings of the Buddha, or something that somebody made up in Chicago, Washington, Uruguay. Nothing wrong necessarily, but I want to know my refuge is with the Buddha. So I want to know what comes really from the Buddha and what is not. So by taking refuge in the first jewel, the Buddha, and the second jewel, the Dhamma, we ourselves can become the third jewel, the noble Sangha, the Arya Sangha. So whenever you hear teaching that you don't know the origin from, ask for a source reference. And make an effort over time also to read the suttas on your own. I can only strongly encourage that. I think I've mentioned last time also, every Muslim is supposed to have read the Quran. And many can even quote from it. A passage from here, from there, different chapters. Every Christian knows the Bible. And many of them can quote from it. But how many of you have read the Sutta Pitaka and can quote from it? I better don't ask. Well, of course, to our defense also, the Sutta Pitaka is quite a lot. It's more books than just one book. And so it's also understandable that it's not so easy to know all of it. But over time, regularly encountering it, and it's almost like you can identify, or you can start at any place there. Because any sutta you take, it has a certain taste. It's this certain flavor. It's like even if you are blindfolded and you just open the book and start reading anywhere, you always get a similar flavor, I feel. There's actually a sutta that says that. It says in Anguttara 8.17, just as the great ocean has but one taste, the taste of salt, so too this Dhamma and discipline has but one taste, the taste of liberation. Right? If you go to the ocean with a cup, take a cup of water, salty, go somewhere else, take another cup, also salty. There's only one taste. The same with the Dhamma and Vinaya. It has this taste, a single taste, the taste of letting go, of detachment, of liberation. Okay, so in this way, by identifying the true Dhamma from the fake Dhamma, over time you might also become a protector of the Dhamma, because you can identify the real teachings from the fake ones. So you become a protector of the Sasana, Saṅghaṇāyaka. Like here, SBS actually means Saṅghaṇāyaka, Buddhist sanctuary. We are protectors of the Sasana. Well, maybe not everyone, but that's the meaning of the word. So if you found this quiz difficult, just keep listening to Dhamma talks, reading the suttas. And if you found it easy, well, congratulations. Probably you have done that already a lot. Not making quizzes, but having listened to many Dhamma talks, done some sutta study. And that provides us with the tools and perspectives that we need to live our lives not only to the fullest, but also skillfully and meaningfully. But don't stop here. You also need to put the Dhamma into practice by practicing meditation, but also in our daily lives. Okay. I offer that for your reflection today and wish everyone a good day.